All right, welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill.
This is Kyle Hunter.
My friends, we have a great show for you today. We have some great games to talk about. Definitely crossing our fingers to make sure they happen, though, right, Kyle?
Absolutely.
Lots of cancellations have happened this week, and unfortunately, COVID's growing, and it's just something that's been predicted by doctors. They say coronaviruses are bigger in the fall. Hopefully, it doesn't really screw some things up. There's some teams already, like Wisconsin, that can't afford to lose any other games if they want any shot at making the playoffs. And you wonder how that stuff's going to handle. But from a sports betting perspective, we have some angles for you, whether these games happen or not. We're going to talk about them, aren't we, Kyle?
That's right. It's definitely. I said this the other day. I like handicapping games. I like handicapping numbers. I don't like handicapping COVID. That's not fun. I don't like trying to figure out who's going to play, who may be missing a bunch of players. And also, you and I talking even before we started this, trying to figure out, what we want to give out here. We don't want to give out one that gets canceled because then we didn't even give out a play. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's kind of, it makes it a little bit complicated, but we're going to give out some information that's going to help you regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, and hopefully you can do the best with you can. We try to pick some games that didn't necessarily have COVID. One of them that we picked, one team already had COVID, so we kind of hope that it's over with right now for them. So we can get into that. But first, Kyle, why don't we get into some trends?
Yeah, I've got some trends and angles here for college football for this week as I bring up my screen here. This one, we got a couple totals angles. The first one is home team is between game number 5 and 7. So there's a lot of teams that are in that range right now. And both the road team and the home team have gone over more than half their games. So that it can't be 50-50. It has to be 51% or higher. If you take an under with a total of 55 and a half or higher in those games, you've done really, really well. We're at 60% here in the last 10 years. So I know this one's a little bit complicated, not one of the easiest ones I've said.
Hmm.
Both teams are over 50% overs on the year. So you want to go against that contrarian and take the under. So you're trying to take teams that maybe you get an inflated point total, take the under back, but it has to be 55 and a half or higher. You're at 60%. Now, the games that fit it this week, I'm going to tell you, I saw these and I'm like, I don't know that I like any of these plays. I wanted to give this out, but UCF under, I mean, who wants to bet a UCF under? You want to bet a UCF under? I don't really want to bet a
Never.
UCF under. So Houston under and Virginia under. I think I like Virginia and Louisville over if I had to take that game.
Hmm.
So Houston, don't lean that game too strong. Houston may be the under in that one if I had to take something. But that's just kind of an interesting angle to keep an eye on because that's between game 5 and 7. So we'll get that even next week. Now, I'm going to give you the next angle. This one's way easier. It's going to be a lot easier for everybody to keep track of. A game with an average wind of 12 miles per hour or higher with a total of 56 or higher. The under's 305 and 222. That's 57.9%. Look, that doesn't sound like a huge number, but that's a really big sample size. So it shows you that when we talk about weather on here, it does matter a lot. This is against the closing line too, remember? And these numbers are getting bet down throughout the week. So you would have done better if you took it in the middle of the week than if you take it on the closing line.
So let me
So that's
understand
something.
something. You have a trend on the wind itself. That is, you have a pretty good set of data points to get trends from,
Yeah,
Kyle.
to be fair, I'm using Bet Labs here when it's pretty expensive. It's not free like Killer Sports, but average wind of 12 miles per hour or higher, um, 305, 222. And I don't mean to bash Killer Sports. I think Killer Sports is better than Bet Labs on some things, to be totally honest with you. It's just different. Bet
Right,
Labs
right.
is Bet Labs. I'll say Bet Labs is almost kind of the easier one if you don't really know how to query things like that. So, I don't really know how to do that, and it takes a long time. So I use Bet Labs. But average wind of 12 miles per hour with a total of 56 or higher. 58% to the under in a really big sample size. There's a few games that look like they could be at the edge of that. Nebraska game is one of them this week.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech, another one. But it's right about 12 miles per hour, so you'll want to check the weather as you get closer to that game. Not huge weather games in college football this week. In the NFL, there are, and we'll get to that here in a few minutes. I want to say one more angle, and this one, I think this one's really fun. I like angles like this just because they're, they seem like they wouldn't stand out that much to most people, but, it's done really well. The team is the favorite. They're the home favorite. And in the last game, they scored 9 points or less. So they scored 9 points or less in their last game. And they are then home favorite in the next game. So the games that would fit that this week, UTEP, I'm going to pull up my screen here as I say this. UTEP against UTSA, Vanderbilt against Kentucky, and Southern Miss against Western Kentucky. So you're always going to be taking ugly teams in ones like this probably because you're going against a team who isn't very good, but they're yet favored. So they're a home favorite. We know that Kentucky got shut down in their last game, I believe by Georgia. Western Kentucky played in that game in the wind last weekend. That was one of my good calls last weekend, the Western Kentucky and Florida Atlantic under.
Yeah, that thing was at like 10 points throughout most of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think it was 0-0 in the third quarter at one point in that game. And it's nice to get an easier winner because we know how many of them we have to sweat in, right? So
yeah.
But this one is 280 and 188. That's 60% over the last 15 years. And this is fading home favorites after they scored less than 10 points in their last game. So this is one that it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. It's just if they've scored less than 10 points in the last game and now they're favored at home, you go against them. And usually there aren't many cases like this. So the fact that there's 3 in 1 week really stands out. Looking at it, UTEP against UTSA, I could see a case to be made for that one. Vanderbilt against Kentucky, very low total, 17-point spread. I mean, I don't want to take Vanderbilt.
You said that earlier in the year, and Vanderbilt got their ass kicked by LSU.
Right.
So
I mean, Vanderbilt is so bad. Although I will say they almost beat Mississippi State last week, and they should have beaten them. I think that's probably one of them that you talked about when you were looking at the box scores that were misleading.
5-0 turnover ratio or something. I think.
Yeah, Mississippi State was really lucky to beat Vanderbilt, but Southern Miss, the other one against Western Kentucky. I believe Southern Miss is on their 3rd or 4th string quarterback. So be careful on that one.
Yeah.
But this is a good angle to watch for in the future. Teams that have not scored points in the previous game, but they are favored in the next game, have been really good fades. So you're going against them in that next game when they're favorite and taking the underdog. 280 and 188, that's 60% ATS.
I can see why that is because a square bettor or just the public or maybe somebody that even is a successful bettor might think to themselves, oh my God, their coach is going to get on their ass. They scored 6 points this game. I expect them to, make up for it. And then all of a sudden they fall.
Now they're playing a bad team. They can, yeah.
And even if they score, they're not covering. That's the thing because the spread gets overflated with people thinking like that, right? So that makes total sense to me, man. Great stuff, Kyle. Great trends this week. Fantastic, man. Well, let's get to our main card here, and we're going to start with an under the radar game that Kyle and I like so much. We're going to look at Middle Tennessee State at Marshall. And funny thing about this game, I mean, you're looking at money, right? 64% of the bets are on Marshall and 90% of the money. You think it's a sharp side, and maybe it's very semi-sharp, but the number didn't move. It didn't move at all, which means there's some resistance somewhere. And from the data points that this came in, you see there's 718 bets that this is tracking. This is just telling me that this is BS, in that this is not sharp action. And as a matter of fact, this is a massive favorite here, and Middle Tennessee State's a very bad team. But I expect to see this to move up to 27 if this was actual big money coming in, like syndicates or just large players that know what they're doing, that are consistent over 53% winners or anything like that. So I wanted to say that and call that out a little bit. The thing about this, Middle Tennessee State, Rick Stockstill, he's disappointed me this year. He has. I was higher on this team before the season started. I was kind of thinking that maybe Middle Tennessee State would be my darling team to bet on, but they returned 82% of their offense. O'Hara, their quarterback, right? And they have a bad schedule, and they're getting beat by some really bad teams. They returned 50% of their defense, but apparently it was the 50% of the bad part of their defense, because they ain't stopping anybody, man. They are a negative 0.65 yards per play, Kyle, while Marshall is a plus 2.8 or 2.08 yards per play. Doc Holliday, he's got it going on this year, man. And I hate to say this, but I don't think that Marshall is going to lose a game outright this year. And if you look at their schedule here, I'll just flip it over to my screen. They have Middle Tennessee State, one of the worst teams in the Conference USA. They have Charlotte, that's kind of a middle of the road team, if that. I mean, for the conference, maybe. And then they have Rice, which isn't that good. And FIU is terrible this year, too. So this is going to be an overrated, undefeated Marshall team, because I only have them 4 points better than the average team in all of college football. One thing I will say about this Marshall undefeated team, and please don't be like UCF. Please don't go out there and say that you should be in the college football playoffs with that schedule, because if you do that, you're going to get so much hate. But they do have some pro players on that team, and one of his names is on defense named Stephen Gilmore. I watched him play, and I watched him play against Appalachian State, and he shut that team down completely. So just wanted to mention that Stephen Gilmore. Keep that in your mind. You're going to see him in the NFL. My pure number on this game, Kyle, is Marshall minus 20. And when it's minus 20, that doesn't mean it's always just 20 points. That could mean it could be 4 scores, it could be 3 scores, it could be 5 scores. So it's just way up in the doldrums there. So when it's minus 20 and the spread's minus 24, it's not something I jump at. So I was wondering if you had any stronger thoughts on this game, Kyle.
So Marshall's a team that I'd like to fade rather than bet on, because I think Marshall's due for some regression. The problem is they keep facing these teams that you don't want to bet because they're playing such bad teams. When I look at this game, this is the 50th anniversary, the exact day, 50 years from the plane crash for Marshall, the tragic plane crash.
Wow.
They are having a big, they've rallied around this game. I don't know. I know that they have a ceremony that's taking place on campus. There's a fountain built there for the victims of the crash. There's some big singers coming in for singing the national anthem. There's big deal here in Marshall for this game. And the times that they have honored the plane crash victims in the past, they have beaten people really badly. And it's a small sample size, so take of it what you may. I don't want to bet against Marshall in this game. If I had to bet something in this game, I'm laying the points, 23.5 or 24, especially because MTSU has laid down in several of these games already. I don't know that they're going to fight all the way to the end in a game like this. So if Marshall wants to go out there and prove a point, they could do it in a game like this.
Yeah, great point there. I didn't know it was the anniversary of that. So wow, what a time it must have been when that happened, and that's going to fire this team up. You know that, and wearing a bunch of different jerseys is really cool. I think it's just a super cool idea. I'm excited to watch just a little bit of this game because of that, but probably a game that you don't want to watch too much, because this should be over at halftime, in my opinion. But Doc Holliday, he's got it going on over there. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a schedule. And if you're looking to fade Marshall, Kyle, I don't know if there's too many good spots to do it coming up, going through the rest of that schedule. But maybe FIU will pull it together at the end for you. We'll have to see what that last spread comes out to. Hopefully, it's like 30 or something.
Yeah, give me a lot of points.
Well, let's move on to the next game then, Kyle. We're in Big Ten country, which is something I definitely key in on, and you live in Big Ten country, and so you definitely know a lot about it yourself. You have Penn State; they're laying 3 points to Nebraska, and that's interesting to me because I'm going to be forthright with you. I gave this play out at -3 before the season. It was one of those look ahead lines, and I thought they would be a bigger favorite when that happened. I thought the -3 was good. I was possibly even wondering if a buyback on Nebraska would be an option, and I can middle it. I was expecting it to be -7. I expected them to play better against Ohio State. I expected that. I didn't expect the Indiana loss. I expected a good hard fought game, and then last week's loss is just like what.
What happened in that game
against Maryland. The thing about Penn State is the narrative flipped. Last year, they were getting outgained and winning, like against teams like Buffalo. I remember that
right?
perfectly because I got hosed at the very end of that game on on a bomb that they threw because Franklin wants to cover the spread. If people don't know that already, but this year he can't for some reason because the team is very inefficient for some reason. The question to me is how good is Northwestern really? How good is this Northwestern Wildcat team? Because if they're very good, then maybe Nebraska's not that bad because Nebraska outgained Northwestern and they played Ohio State tough that first half until ejections and stuff happened. They only played 2 games. So if I'm looking at the coach, I don't like Franklin. I don't like his attitude, and I don't like some of the stuff he says, Kyle, at all. I think he's got a big ego and a big chip on his shoulder for no reason whatsoever. And I think that's going to end up biting him in the ass one of these days. And I wonder if it's going to be this year. It already has started 0-3, and Nebraska is probably circling this game themselves. They need a big win here. They didn't get that shot against Wisconsin. Now they have a shot here against Penn State. A lot of sharp people like Penn State because they have them higher than this. But to be honest with you, my power ratings have Penn State only -1. And so I'm sitting here with a ticket at Penn State -3, and I have Nebraska, and it's starting to creep up there. I'm considering a buyback, Kyle, on Nebraska just to get out of this personally. And I don't do that too often, but I have respect for that stadium and respect for the coach Scott Frost. And I think if Martinez was better, you might have seen more of a UCF type Scott Frost like we did 4 years ago. With Mackenzie Milton, that team was amazing. But now I'm still holding out. I think there's going to be some public money coming in on Penn State, maybe even some sharp money. I don't know. But right now, if I'm looking at it's 65% of the bets are on Penn State, and 90% of the money, 83% of the money. So it's somewhat of a sharper side. The fact that it came off the 3, I could say that, it's coming off the 3 is what I should say. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
My power ratings number is Penn State -4.5, and I don't want to bet Penn State here. If I had to bet a side, I would take Nebraska here. Look, we do power ratings, but I don't make my bets solely based on my power ratings. I mean, that's only part of the equation to me. I want to factor in situational spots and different angles, what's going on as far as injuries, things like that. That can be hard to put into a power rating. And I will say that I'm not a fan of James Franklin at all either. Lots of my Buckeye fan friends will say, Harbaugh, and I mean we could really talk about Harbaugh too, but I mean I like Harbaugh better than I like Franklin. I don't like Franklin because he tries to run up the score when he can run up the score on somebody that's no good. He'll run up the score on Georgia State, teams like that, and win 56-0 and try to score right at the last second. I don't like him. I think he has too much of an ego. I don't have anything against Penn State. Penn State, the team. I just don't like James Franklin, and I think that starting 0-3 for Penn State was so unexpected. It's hard to know what you're going to get now. Is this team going to fight really hard and win the rest of their games, or are they going to lay down at some point? I don't know. Penn State has enough talent that they should win some of these games that they've been losing. Obviously, they should have beaten Maryland. And flipping through the channels the other day after I'd taken a bike ride with the family, and my son says, "Look at the Penn State score. It's 35-7." And I said, "Well, I'm not surprised it's 35-7." He said, "Maryland's winning." And I was like, "What?" I thought that Penn State was winning 35-7, and that wouldn't have been a surprise. But,
No.
Penn State, I can't bet them after what I've seen here. I would only bet Nebraska if I'm taking a side in this game. And I think Nebraska could be a good money line play. +3, some +3.5s here. We'll talk about our dog later, but Nebraska would be one that would be in the consideration for me, because I think Nebraska, this game probably means just as much, if not more, to Nebraska than it does to Penn State at this point, right? Because Penn State had a lot higher goals than trying to win a game to get to 1-3. So
Yeah.
I couldn't bet Penn State.
Yeah, I'm not. I'd be shocked if some of the players don't opt out now
Right.
because they're 0-3. It's like I think they still get to opt out to what, 4 games? Is it? I don't know what the rule is to retain that year of eligibility, right? I don't know the. I think it's 4, just like a red shirt. So why is Micah Parsons not opting out? I don't know. Maybe he can get ready for the draft. Maybe he just wants to play a full season. There's a couple other guys there that are decent. Their running back, forgot his name. He retired. He was injured.
Journey Brown.
Journey
Yeah.
Brown. That's it. And so they're on their like third running back right now. Sean Clifford is a really good running quarterback, but I don't think he's that good of a reading the actual field. I don't think he's good at reading defenses, and I think he just kind of takes off, and that was really good for him last year. But people are starting to figure that out. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm glad we're in agreement here, and you made some great points. You don't just go by your analytics, because what you started with, you bring them down and down, and you don't know if you're doing it enough. And at the same time, some teams are have bad efficiency. They can get all the way to the 20 and they can't do anything with the ball and when they get down there. So that's Penn State. So let's move on to the next game. We have a game that I know a little bit more about, hopefully, but when I say that, I don't know nearly as much as I want to know because Wisconsin, they keep things pretty tight under wraps. I know a few things, but Wisconsin's playing Michigan, and Michigan is a now 4.5-point dog at home. It was at 5. It came down a half point. Whoop-de-doo, right? Uh, there's really no sharp money that's saying anything. 40% of the tickets are on Michigan +4, +5, whatever, and 37% of the money. I know one thing, that Wisconsin was a sharper play in the beginning. I'll be honest, this was a premium play. I took them at Pick'em, and I knew the spread, where the spread was going when I saw this. I gave it out at Pick'em on Sunday, and now I have options. I can decide what I want to do. I'm in a good spot. The problem is that I actually have them power rated 8 points better than Michigan. So if you give Michigan 2 points for home field advantage, that's 6 points right there. I'm higher on Wisconsin than people, and I hope it's not my homerness, but from what I saw, from what they returned, and what I knew about Graham Mertz coming in, I just thought they didn't lose a lot of defense. They lost 2 linebackers. They retained 3 or 4 of their offensive linemen. They retained their tight end. They're always running back you. They got a new kid named Jalen Berger coming up that's going to be really good. A lot of people giving him some flack for that Illinois game. that they couldn't run the ball. Well, I'll tell you right now, Lovie Smith, when he builds a defense, he builds it from the inside out. They have some big boys on the defensive line, and they came in there knowing that that's all they wanted to do is stop the run, and that's why Graham Mertz destroyed them. I mean, Ferguson was so wide open, my 6-year-old would have thrown touchdowns to him with a regulation sized ball, Kyle. I mean, that's how open Ferguson was. So there is some, well, Graham Mertz faced a terrible pass defense because they were cheating up on the run. And maybe that's part of the reason why Wisconsin wasn't running good. But, Jonathan Taylor's not there, and he was a lot faster. You can tell that Garrett Groshek's not that fast. You can tell that Watkins isn't that fast. But they do have a kid named Jalen Berger that didn't play yet, and he's the freshman, the 4-star running back coming in that's from New Jersey as well, like Jonathan Taylor. The kid's a beast, and I'm expecting to see a little bit of him, hopefully, this game. But as far as the COVID issues, we don't know a lot about the players except for a couple quarterbacks, but Graham Mertz is eligible to play this game. And if he's eligible to play, I don't see why they don't play him. He's already had some off-season practice with them. And it's not like Danny Vandenboom got to practice with the team when they're held out for COVID itself. The thing that worries me about this Wisconsin game is they have one game on their back, and yeah, it's at home against Illinois. So what if Illinois is that bad? The thing about Illinois, they went into COVID protocol too and lost a couple quarterbacks. Right. So they've been playing the last 2 weeks without they're starting 2 quarterbacks themselves, but they actually went and played. Props to them for doing that, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they didn't get to the threshold, or maybe the Badgers didn't want to go and play Nebraska. I don't know the true story behind that, but what I do know is that I would say that there's a very good chance this line's telling you that Graham Mertz is going to play. The question is, what's Michigan, and how bad are they, and are they going to finally step it up? I'm going to stick up for Harbaugh a little bit here, and I think, well, here's the thing. He returns like 30% production from last year. They rank 125th out of 130 teams in returning production. Why is people surprised that a bunch of freshmen and sophomores aren't blowing teams away in college football in the Big Ten? I didn't expect Michigan to be that good. And I did downgrade them a little bit, but I bet I was a lot lower on Michigan than other people. So now you got all these people throwing more crap at Mr. Khaki wearing Harbaugh, and the unfortunate part about it is that it's going to hurt his recruiting. Michigan State's already pulling some kids that he should have been pulling, from what I'm reading and from what I'm hearing. So he's getting a bad rap, but I expected him to be that bad this year. But if you're going to fire him this year, why didn't you fire him last year? Because you knew he wasn't returning a ton of people. So that's what blows my mind. It's like, are they mismanaging Harbaugh, or is just all a bunch of noise, and they're actually going to keep Harbaugh a couple years? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Harbaugh's made some bowl games, and yeah, he hasn't won some big games. He beat Notre Dame last year, though. He beat them well, and the Ohio State. Who has beat Ohio State besides Purdue? By accident, right? And I'm not going to get down on you for that. I know you're at the game, Kyle, but. Who can beat Ohio State?
Every week. No, I mean, I thought you were going to say Clemson, which actually that one would have been worse.
well, it was Clemson and a few Zebras that beat Ohio State last year. But nobody, you can't really count him down for not beating Ohio State. I don't care. I think he's good for the program itself, but I do worry about his recruiting now because the media is sitting there trying to fire him before he's actually even fired. I mean, and then when you're a recruit, you're looking at Harbaugh, it's like, are you going to be there when I come? I'll choose Ohio State. I'll choose Michigan State. I'll choose Wisconsin. It's like, that's got to be really hard for him. Hopefully those kids' parents wear khakis, because I don't see how they're going to get to Michigan, man. But right now I have some options. And I know that's not really helping people, but I would not bet Michigan at +4. Any thoughts, Kyle?
No, I mean, I can't bet Michigan based on what I've seen so far from them this year. And look, I'm an Ohio State fan, and everybody knows that. It's obvious, but I've bet Michigan before. I've bet against Ohio State before. My allegiance to Ohio State doesn't mean that I can't bet against them or that I can't bet on Michigan. Michigan losing to Michigan State was a really bad loss. Michigan State sucks. They're not good at all. Um, really, really upset with myself for not putting a big play out on Iowa last weekend. That was a mistake on my part. I played it personally small at -5 when it got
That was
bet
your free
down.
pick
I
last week,
know, and
buddy.
and I didn't put it out for clients. I've said it on here, so I hope everybody here played it. But I'm upset with myself for not releasing that to all my paid clients. I'm also upset with myself for that being a smaller play of mine. That should have been a big play. It's one of those COVID things that I was afraid that maybe Iowa had COVID issues, and that's why the line had gone from 7.5 down to 5. Because I thought, why would everybody else be wanting to bet Michigan State? Otherwise, they were overrating Michigan State based on the fact that they had just beaten Michigan. And, to me, Michigan is almost unbettable right now. Obviously, if you give me a good enough number, I could bet them no matter what. But I can't bet them on this game. And like you said, I do think this line suggests that Graham Mertz is going to play. I said before the season, I say again now, I think Graham Mertz is an upgrade from Cone. He hadn't necessarily been bad in the system, but Mertz has a lot higher upside.
Mhm.
And I know that it was against Illinois and they were playing against the run, but I think Mertz is going to be very good for Wisconsin. If I was taking a side here, I would take Wisconsin. I'm not going to bet this game. I am curious what your thought here is on the total. Do you have a lean on the total?
I think last time I looked, it was at about 52 and a
53 and a,
half. Is that
53 and a half.
okay? So I lean over for sure for the total. I think no matter what happens, is that Wisconsin, even if they get a big lead, Michigan just they have to come back. That's the only thing they can do. But I also think that they're going to cheat up on the box just like the other teams do, and Graham Mertz is going to have a field day throwing over the top of them. So I it's hard because Wisconsin's defense was so good against Illinois, and that you think about that, but it's also against Illinois. I mean,
Right.
they're incompetent on offense, and I think at least Michigan, when they showed some signs of life, they scored a little bit against Michigan State. Should have scored more. They scored a lot against Minnesota, a ton, and you know. I mean, what else can you say? It's they should be able to put up some points. I just think Wisconsin could score over 30. I think they could score 35 here. So, or, maybe I could be completely wrong because we have won the game of sample size. But I think with all the preseason hype, ESPN's FPI having Wisconsin at number 4 preseason, I have to respect that too. So, compared to my power rankings, I'm not as high as ESPN's FPI. And there's people at ESPN that are hating on Wisconsin right now, and they're saying the most likely top 15 teams to lose are Miami and Wisconsin. I saw that, and I tweeted Chris Felica about that, and he responded, "The ghost of the Pinstripe Bowl."
Oh,
It's Miami's his team, and so I think it'd be funny to parlay that one together, but not giving that out or nothing. But Miami's got Virginia Tech. That's a great game. But sticking with this one, I think my number 6. So you can do what you want with that. I'm not going to give that out as a play, but that's the best breakdown I have because there's just not a big sample size on Wisconsin, Kyle. Let's
agreed.
let's move into the most likely dog to cover, Kyle. And I to be honest with you, I have a couple, but I think I settled on one. How about you?
Yeah, you and I agree on one that the game might get canceled, so I'm going to stay away from that one. As far as one that is most likely to win
That's what I meant.
outright,
Outright. Yeah, I said cover.
yeah,
I meant win outright.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I like Boston College. I don't love them on the money line. I do think they're worth a sprinkle there, though. I mean, that's a bad spot for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a good team, but they're not. I don't think they're elite. I don't think they're with the very top teams in the country still, and some people would disagree with that, but we'll find out over time. Boston College is going to be a popular underdog this week, though, so that's a little bit tricky. I would say Boston College is a side that I like. As far as the most likely to win as an underdog, I'm going to take Illinois here against Rutgers. This is just a high variance game for me. I know Illinois has all kinds of problems right now. I'm just not ready to say Rutgers is 7 points better than somebody else in the Big Ten right now.
I know.
Um, Rutgers played better against Ohio State last week, but if you watch that game, Ohio State was definitely goofing around in the second half. I mean, they got the lead. and Rutgers starts calling all these trick plays, just one after another, and everything was a trick play. And I think you have to give Rutgers credit that they're playing hard, and they are playing hard for Schiano. But I think that this is one of those games where Rutgers could win by a decent amount. It's also a game where Illinois could win. So if you give me a good money line price, I think Illinois is worth a look there on the money line.
All right, no, I like it, and I think that was a sharper side too when I was looking at the money on that one. So I think the game you were talking about that we both are worried that's going to get canceled was Cal, I think, and Cal's a 3.5 point dog at Arizona. I guess it wouldn't hurt betting it.
Right.
So that's mine, and I'm going to give you another if that gets canceled. So I want to make sure that people know that we know this ahead of time, so I don't want to leave people hanging. First, Cal. The thing I want to say is that I was so high on them in the offseason just because ASU showed life against USC, and it's just one of those first game outliers to me. If you saw the last two drives, USC put it on ASU pretty well. I can't downgrade Cal from what Justin Wilcox has been doing, and their quarterback Chase Garbers has just been very good. I think 3.5 is too high, and I think they can literally win this one outright with defense. And I think they know how to stop a running quarterback like Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels is fantastic. So I do like him a lot as a quarterback, but the rest of the team at ASU is just very young. And this is a spot where they almost had USC, they blew it, and they're going to let down a little bit because of it, and that's my opinion. Anything quick on that?
I like Cal. That probably would have been my top choice. So, I would say I like Cal a little bit better than Illinois. I think there's a good chance Cal doesn't get to play this weekend. So, Cal on the money line, I think, makes a lot of sense. Jaden Daniels is good. He doesn't have a lot of help around him. And Cal has a good defense, and I like their coaching staff. I think Cal is well coached. So, Cal I like quite a bit as well.
All right, and so since I have to give you another one, then I do like your Boston College play. There, Jerkovic is facing his old team. Ian Book didn't go to the pros, so he kind of had to move on and find a place where he can play football, and that happens, And he's going to have a little chip on his shoulder. Notre Dame in a massive letdown spot after they charged the field. So, really like what you're saying there. So there's a couple of them that I'm looking at. I'm going to give out Louisville against Virginia. Louisville's due for a game, and they do have some good offense there. Their defense has been very suspect, but this line is only big for Virginia is because they beat North Carolina outright. I think that score was a little bit misleading, and North Carolina went there, and North Carolina kind of beat themselves that game. They allowed Virginia to stay in that game a lot, and this is just the part that I can smell. This line stinks. This line stinks. After they beat North Carolina, they're 3.5 points at home. This is one where I'm seeing that Louisville can finally pull it all together and shock Virginia. So I'm going to go with Louisville for mine. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like that one too. I think we're in agreement this week, so hopefully that makes some people some money.
All right, well, there you go. Maybe sprinkle a little parlay together too, and see what that comes up with. Anyways, and always fun money if you ever do that. I never give out premium plays for any types of parlays. Let's move on to some NFL. Kyle, we have a big game. We have the Ravens versus the Patriots. The Ravens are road favorites of -7. I'm sure it's -7 because of what we saw against the Jets last week with the Patriots almost losing outright. But when I look at the money in this one, and bear with me while I switch to the NFL, the Ravens have a little bit of sharper side to it. 73% of the tickets, and I got to go to my screen, are on the Ravens, and 90% of the money. This number switched back to 6.5. This was at 7, so I don't know what book's offering this. This is probably no book that I've ever seen, but it's still at 7 and a higher 7 at most of the books I see. So I'm ignoring this number right here. But you can see there's people betting the Ravens, and I actually I like this. The Ravens to me They beat the Colts, so they're a little bit overvalued. You have the Patriots that screwed up against the Jets, probably didn't take them seriously. They have a ton of injuries, but who wants to bet against Belichick in a desperate situation where he can make a statement here? That's what I say, man. I I can't do that. I can't lay 7. What I do think about this game is that the Ravens are great teaser candidates. I think they do win. I think they win it. But I think they're going to win by 1 point, 3 points, 7 points, or 10 points, maybe 13 or 14. But I think I don't want to mess with Belichick at home here in his place because he's going to have something ready for Harbaugh. And this is one of the few coaching advantages that you would look away from Harbaugh because normally you look to Harbaugh. Maybe these guys are 1-2 even in the NFL, Kyle. Maybe they are, and that's what's so cool about this game. But he can possibly hype Cam up a little bit. They've been finding some new guys to throw it to every single week. Harris over there, the running back's been doing very well. They actually ran it all over the Jets, and the Jets were supposedly a good run defense, but they were without Quinnen Williams. But if you look at the stats, they're a decent run defense. My power number is exactly 7. I wanted to bet the Ravens. I tried to get over it. I ran through my algorithm and I got 6.4. So I couldn't get above 7. But at the same time, I should not be betting against Bill Belichick. What are your thoughts?
I'd bet the Ravens here if I'm betting aside. The other thing I want to note about this game is it's supposed to be rainy, 70% chance of rain, 15 miles per hour wind. I would have liked the over if it weren't for that. With that, I do not like the over. That can change the game, definitely. I'm not sure the Patriots care too much as we get later into the season. Maybe I think they probably care about this game. If they lose this game, they may be a good fade in future games because what do they really have to play for if they lose this game? So, I would be anxious to go against them in future weeks if they lose this game. If they lose it by too much, you're going to be, not get great value because the Patriots have already been beaten down a couple times this year. I would take the Ravens here if I'm taking a side. I think the Ravens can run the football on the Patriots. Patriots' run defense has been really bad. They're really bad. And we know Jackson and the passing game have had trouble here. But I don't know that they need to pass the ball much this week. So I think the Ravens can run the ball on the Patriots here. So I like the Ravens side. Love the Ravens in a teaser too, definitely.
All right, so you definitely like. Are you laying the 7 with them? Is that your play? Is that what you're saying, or?
I like the Ravens, yeah.
All
Yeah,
right, look at that.
I like the Ravens.
All right, there you go, Kyle, with some big thoughts about that. In my opinion, not a little bit too rich for me, but like I said, I think the Ravens will win this game. Let's move on to a game I unfortunately know about, and I do apologize. I did rip on the Bears pretty much all week in the podcast for all you listeners, but I'm not apologizing to them. I'm apologizing to you guys for listening to me so much. So I'm going to try to take it a little bit more easy this week, and I'm going to say a couple nice things about the Bears. So the only nice thing I have to say is they're at home.
That's it.
That's it. Because they handled Tampa Bay at home and they won that outright, and they went to overtime with New Orleans and lost by 3 and covered that spread. So you can hold on to that, and that's one reason I'm not betting the Vikings. But that's it, because this is one of the worst offenses I've seen in football. Well, I guess you can compare it to Washington, and maybe Washington's slightly worse. I don't know. But I expect a lot more with the talent that they have. Nick Foles seems to be worse than Trubisky. Their offensive line has some COVID issues. They also have some serious injury issues with Massey and James Daniels out on IR. And Cody Whitehair is coming back, we think, so that's a good thing. But they still have a couple of those other backup tackles in COVID protocol. We'll see if they can even come back. We're not going to know that probably till Saturday or Sunday. But, Delvin Cook's been running really well. And that's what worries me, because the Bears' run defense isn't as good as what it was. They can get run on because they kind of been dropping back in the pass a little bit, and sometimes there's some big chunk yards. If you look, they're not that great running defense. What they are is efficient. For some reason, when the other team gets around the 35, the 20-yard line, they hold on the field goals for the most part. They're not scoring a lot, especially at Soldier Field. I mean, Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks still leading that defense. They have a chip on their shoulder, and it sucks that the Bears are wasting these guys. But Nick Foles can shine once in a while, and we've all seen it before. This could be just another spot where all of a sudden their offense just picks up, and the Vikings get completely stumped. The bad thing for the Vikings is Kirk Cousins is out of his 1 o'clock Eastern comfort zone. For some reason, he's really good at 1 o'clock, but whenever he goes up plays a Monday night game, he looks like he doesn't even belong in the NFL. For that reason alone, I can't bet the Vikings. If this thing gets past 3, I'm probably gonna have to hold my nose and bet the Bears. I don't want to do that, but I don't like the Bears in a teaser because they could lose 10-0. I think their offense is that bad, and the Vikings defense has gotten a little bit better too. So I'm going to stay away from the side on this, but it's a big Monday night game. I'll be excited to watch it as a fan. Kyle, you have any thoughts on it?
So less thoughts on this one than I had on the last game. I will say that a little bit of wind for this game too, 12, 13 miles per hour. We know Soldier Field that wind can be an issue. So that's something you want to keep an eye on. This total has been bet down really hard. This was 46.5, now 43.5 for 43. You have a lean on the under or over here? Or do
It's funny. We were both on that Saints under 45, and they went to overtime, but the Bears kicked the field goal to make it to overtime. So it wasn't necessarily a bad beat because they went over by 1 when that happened. But at the same time, the Vikings are probably going to score some points, or Kirk Cousins is going to throw some interceptions. I don't. I think the Vikings have a decent offense still. Their defense has just been so suspect, and it's hard. It's hard to trust the Bears, but under at 43. I'm sorry. I'm going against the money. I'm going to lean to the over.
Yeah, I was going to say at 45 or 45 and a half, it makes sense. 45 is a pretty key number. And as far as this game, I think the key is whether you think the Bears can stop the Minnesota rushing attack, because we know the Bears secondary is really good and they're excellent. Arguably the best secondary in the NFL, definitely one of the top 3 or 4. Cousins isn't going to throw all over this Bears defense. The question is Dalvin Cook going to run all over them or maybe get a screen pass and take off? Mm-hmm. Cook has been really, really good. Like you said, I mean, efficiency-wise, Cook's been as good as anybody. So, that's the question here. On the other side, Minnesota's defense was really bad at the beginning of the season, like one of the worst in the NFL. They've been a little bit better lately. We know Zimmer's a defensive mind. I think that's why Minnesota's been bet pretty hard here, is that Minnesota has been trending in the right direction. I have to say, like you, if this gets to 3.5, I'll have to take the Bears. I won't really want to, but I more than likely will not bet this game.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's just there's just too much smell to it to have to bet this game, and the Bears defense being a little bit worse, and the Vikings kind of up on their upward trend. It's just one of those situations where you don't want to necessarily do it. So, are you going to make your free pick official with the Ravens then, Kyle?
Oh yeah, let's do that. That's my free pick for the week. The Ravens. I got -6.5, but I'll lay the 7 here. No problem with that on the Ravens. I like the Ravens quite a bit here. I think the Ravens are a team that beats teams that aren't very good pretty badly when they play up to competition. They don't play as well. Let me throw in real quick too about the weather in the NFL. Couple games here: Green Bay and Cleveland. 26, 27 mile per hour sustained winds in both of those games. We're seeing significant money come in on the under here. You're going to continue to see that happen. At some point, the number gets too low to take the under. So we called it here for you a little bit earlier before we get to Sunday. So look for these numbers to continue to go down. I know some people even try to bet the under and then try to bet back the over and hit a middle, which is certainly possible.
All right, well, there you go. Kyle's free play. And I'm going to go with a free play as well. And I think it's actually something you might disagree with Kyle, because I heard you on a podcast earlier this week say that you lean the other way. But I'm going to go with Oregon State plus 13.5. Though it was supposed to be a lot more windy, The winds died down a little bit. Now it's going to rain a little bit, which I hate playing Washington. I would hate to play against a Washington team when it's raining and windy. You know, you see what they do to Washington State and all that. When it's raining and windy, they kick their butt. The thing about Washington that I just want to fade them this year. And what I saw with Oregon State is they at least kept the same yardage with Washington State. And I got to tell you, Washington State blew my mind last week. I was on Oregon State last week, but I'm going back to them just because the yardage was pretty close. And I think this is a spot where Washington has a brand new coach and a brand new offense. It's the first game. You know, it's just that first game. Oregon State has already played a game too. You know, so they kind of got their feet wet a little bit. You know, hopefully their feet won't be too wet because they're more of a finesse team, and Washington should be able to run the ball. And if they can't stop the run like they actually couldn't really stop against Washington State. Maybe they're playing against the past and they might be in a little bit of trouble, even though Washington's team is so young. If you look at returning production on offense, I believe Washington ranks second worst in the whole nation. So they have that new coach. They have that weird coordinator, that Donald, that they signed from Jacksonville. It's like why from there? You know, so it's like the offense coordinator from Jacksonville, and you signed him to be your offense coordinator. That kind of blew my mind. They do have consistency though with the defensive coordinator becoming head coach at Washington, but it's a brand new team. So I have a big fat 13.5 here. So I'm a little bit comfortable there, Kyle. So you can.
I don't love it. I don't hate it. I if I had to bet something, I'd bet Washington here, but it's not a strong feeling of mine. So I'm not against you. I'm just kind of on the sideline.
All right. Well, no, that's fine. And so I feel good about it. And so let's see what happens when this thing comes to fruition. Well, Kyle, where can our viewers find your great information and plays this week?
Go over to huntersportspicks.com. If you haven't already signed up for the free picks newsletter, I know some people from the video here have been signing up for that. Right now, I've got an offer going on. You can sign up for the free picks newsletter, and then there's a registration link to register for free to the website at huntersportspicks.com, where you can get a free premium as well. So you'll not only get the free plays that I send by newsletter every single week, but you'll get one of my paid plays for free. So if you haven't already taken advantage of that over at huntersportspicks.com, I encourage you to do so.
All right, make sure you guys check that out. And we also have free plays at the Odds Breakers. Please sign up for our weekly newsletter. There's always a free play on it. If it's in college football, if it's in NFL, there's sometimes three of them. Sometimes I cover them in the podcast. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll throw out an extra one. We also have a spot for free subscribers as well. If you'd like to hop on board, you get my premium plays when I make them. I make a batch of bets when the lines come out. I'll bet some throughout the week, and I'll hit some obviously right before games when the lines move again. So I'm always trying to stay on top of that, and you'd be supporting us at the Oddsbreakers for doing so. So I want to thank you guys all for viewing this show. If you have any questions for next show, Kyle and I would love to break down a game for you. Make sure you send out a tweet to Kyle or me at the Oddsbreakers. Everyone have a great weekend.